Good day, everyone. Today, we will discuss a recent shift in Xi Jinping's attitude towards China's private sector, which has been characterized by a high-profile meeting with tech leaders, including Jack Ma. This change has been influenced by external pressures, internal economic challenges, and the success of Chinese AI technology. This meeting with top Chinese entrepreneurs is unusual because China's market is dominated by state-owned enterprises. With 60% of China's market capitalization owned by the government, Xi's support for the private sector is rare. Jack Ma's rise and subsequent suppression after criticizing financial regulators showcase the Chinese government's previous approach to the private sector. Despite his presence at the recent meeting, the fact that his name was initially omitted from state media reports raises questions about the government's ongoing ambiguity. The shift in Xi Jinping's attitude has been driven by the Trump administration's trade war, post-COVID economic challenges, and the successful development of Chinese AI technology. Like DeepSeek, Xi Jinping's olive branch comes with conditions. The private sector must operate within the boundaries of socialism with Chinese characteristics. The goal is to achieve technological self-sufficiency, reducing reliance on foreign technology. The big question is, can China let its private sector thrive? Xi Jinping's meeting with tech leaders, though promising, brings about uncertainty due to its closed door nature and censorship of attendees' names. Greater freedom for the private sector could lead to innovation, job creation, and economic growth in China. It could also intensify technological competition with the West and have significant geopolitical consequences, shifting the global balance of power. While Xi Jinping's meeting with tech leaders may signal a shift in strategy, it remains unclear whether this will result in a genuine relaxation of government control and a sustained environment for innovation and growth. Thank you for your attention. Let's see how this unfolds and how it impacts China and the world.
All right, so let's dive into something pretty fascinating. Have you ever thought about how China's tech scene kind of operates? I mean, because we're seeing some really intriguing shifts, especially after that meeting. Remember that surprising meeting between Xi Jinping and those big tech giants like Jack Ma? You remember Jack Ma, the Alibaba founder? He kind of went off the grid for a bit after he criticized those Chinese regulators back in 2020.
Yeah, it really is a head scratcher. I mean, especially thinking back just a few years, a meeting like this would have been just unthinkable back then. But the timing here is really key. This meeting, a lot of analysts are seeing it as a potential turning point for how China is approaching their tech industry, and maybe even a sign of how they're planning to position themselves globally.
And we actually have some really interesting insights from a recent Hindustan Times video
Yeah.
that dives into this whole situation. It raises some really big questions, too, like how much control does the Chinese government actually have over these huge tech companies? And how does that impact their ability to innovate?
It's definitely a complex dynamic. For a while now, the main focus has really been on national security and, maintaining stability. But now there seems to be this growing emphasis on them achieving technological independence. And to really understand this shift, I think you have to look at the economic challenges China's facing right now. I mean, their post-COVID recovery has been a lot slower than they expected, and they're dealing with some major demographic shifts. And then on top of that, you've got the lingering effects of the trade war, the one that the previous U.S. administration started. So all of this is kind of forcing China to look inward and prioritize developing their own homegrown technologies.
So it's like they're saying, okay, we can't really rely on the global market as much as we used to. We need to be able to stand on our own 2 feet.
Precisely. And this is where companies like DeepSeek really enter the picture.
DeepSeek, the AI chatbot that's been giving some of those Western giants a run for their money. This is where things get super interesting, right? Because DeepSeek's success, this might be exactly what the Chinese government needed to see. Proof that focusing on your own homegrown innovation can actually work and even disrupt those established players.
It's definitely a powerful symbol. Imagine a Chinese company going head-to-head with the biggest names in AI and coming out on top. It sends a huge message, both within China and on the global stage. But it also raises a lot of questions about how this whole innovation within a socialist system thing actually works, because Xi Jinping himself has talked about incorporating the private sector more deeply into the socialist system. But how do you encourage that kind of risk-taking and creativity while still maintaining that level of control that the Chinese government seems to want?
That's a great point. And that brings us to this whole Jack Ma situation. I mean, this is fascinating to me. We know he was at this meeting. Reports say he even shook hands with Xi Jinping, but then, poof, His name vanishes from all the official reports of the meeting. What's that about?
This is a perfect example of that very delicate balancing act China's trying to pull off. They absolutely need that dynamism and those fresh ideas, the ones that come from the private sector, to truly compete on a global scale. But they also want to make it crystal clear who's ultimately calling the shots. By censoring even the mention of Jack Ma, especially someone as high profile as him, they're sending a strong message. Even the most successful entrepreneurs, they have to toe the line and operate within the boundaries set by the government. There's no room for going rogue.
It's almost like they're playing this high-stakes game of chess, trying to figure out how to unleash the power of their tech sector without losing their grip on it. But here's the thing. It's not just a domestic game anymore. The decisions they make and how this whole experiment plays out, it'll have huge implications for the rest of the world.
Absolutely. China's tech ambitions don't exist in a vacuum. Their success, or even their failure, it's gonna send ripples throughout the global economy. Just imagine for a moment that China actually cracks the code on fostering innovation while maintaining control. They could easily become a major tech exporter, potentially even surpassing the US in certain sectors.
Wow. That would be a seismic shift in global power dynamics, wouldn't it? I mean, can you imagine Chinese companies setting the standards for things like AI, 5G, maybe even quantum computing? What would that mean for the rest of us?
It's a fascinating question to consider. On the one hand, it could lead to some really positive outcomes. More competition in the tech space often translates to faster innovation, which could benefit consumers everywhere. Lower prices, access to cutting-edge technologies.
It's not necessarily a bad thing for the rest of the world.
Not at all. In fact, this kind of competition, it could push other countries to up their game, especially those that have been dominant in the tech space for a long time. But of course, there's some potential downsides to consider as well. There are concerns about a technologically dominant China using its leverage for political influence. Imagine them restricting access to key technologies or using their tech giants to gather data on a global scale.
So it's like a digital version of that old saying, trade for favors, where they hold the tech cards and other countries have to play by their rules. That's a little unsettling.
That's a valid concern. And there are economic implications as well. A more competitive China, it could lead to job displacement in other countries as manufacturing and innovation shift eastward.
It sounds like this whole situation is a mixed bag, full of potential opportunities and some very real risks. I imagine a lot of countries are watching China very closely right now, trying to figure out how this is all going to shake out.
Absolutely. Governments, businesses, investors, even everyday people, they're all trying to understand what a more technologically powerful China means for them.
You know, it's funny. We started this deep dive talking about a single meeting between Xi Jinping and some tech leaders. And then we zeroed in on the curious case of Jack Ma disappearing from the official narrative. Now we're talking about the global balance of power and the future of the entire world economy. It really highlights how interconnected everything is these days.
It's true. That's what makes these deep dives so fascinating. We might start with a specific event or question, but it often leads us to these much bigger, more fundamental questions about the world we live in.
It's like we're peeling back the layers of an onion, and each layer reveals something new, and sometimes a little surprising. So we've talked about what a more innovative China could mean for the rest of the world, both the good and the bad. But what about the U.S.? They've been the global leader in technology and innovation for so long. How are they going to react to this potential shift in power?
That's a question a lot of people are asking. The U.S. is undoubtedly facing increasing pressure to maintain its position as China rises. In many ways, it's shaping up to be a technological arms race between these two superpowers.
A race to see who can innovate faster and control the technologies of the future.
Precisely. We're already seeing signs of this competition heating up. Both countries are pouring massive resources into research and development, especially in fields like artificial intelligence and quantum computing.
And it wouldn't be surprising to see this rivalry spill over into other areas too, right? Things like space exploration, cybersecurity, maybe even education.
Absolutely. The competition between the U.S. and China, it'll likely intensify across multiple domains in the coming years, and technology will be right at the heart of it all. So what can the U.S. do to try and stay ahead in this race? Well, continuing to invest heavily in basic research and education is crucial. They need to create an environment that attracts the best minds from all over the world and allows them to flourish and innovate.
That sounds like a pretty tall order, especially in today's political climate.
It definitely won't be easy,
Yeah.
but it's essential if the U.S. wants to maintain its leadership position. And it's not just about outspending China, it's also about being strategic in how they engage with them. Competition is inevitable and probably even healthy to a degree, but it doesn't have to automatically escalate into conflict.
So finding a balance
Yeah.
between pushing back against China when necessary, but also looking for opportunities to cooperate on shared challenges
Yeah.
like climate change or global health.
Exactly. It's a delicate balancing act. The relationship between the U.S. and China is one of the most consequential in the world today, and how they navigate this technological rivalry will have a profound impact on all of us.
You know, we've been talking about this technological arms race
Yeah.
between the U.S. and China and the impact it could have on, the global balance of power. But something kind of struck me as we were discussing all of this. It's easy to get caught up in the big picture stuff, like the geopolitical maneuvering and the economic implications, who's winning, who's losing. But at the end of the day, this isn't just about countries or corporations. It's about people.
I completely agree. We can sometimes lose sight of that. The fact that technology at its core is a tool, and how we choose to use that tool, both individually and collectively, will ultimately determine what the future looks like.
And we've seen how rapidly technology has changed our lives just in the past decade. Smartphones, social media, the Internet of Things, it's all become so integrated into our daily routines. And this pace of change, it isn't slowing down. If anything, it's accelerating. So what does that mean for us as individuals? What skills do we need to develop to not just survive, but thrive in this constantly evolving world?
Adaptability. That's going to be
Yeah.
absolutely essential. The jobs that will be in high demand 10 or 20 years from now, they might not even exist yet. That means we need to become lifelong learners, constantly updating our skills and being open to embracing new technologies as they emerge.
It's like that old saying, the only constant is change.
Yeah.
But it's not just about keeping up with the latest gadgets or software.
Right. It's about cultivating a mindset that embraces change and sees it as an opportunity rather than a threat. And that means developing those uniquely human skills that are going to be even more valuable as technology advances. Things like critical thinking, creative problem solving, the ability to collaborate effectively with others.
Because in a world where information is so readily available, at our fingertips, it's not just about knowing the answers, it's about knowing which questions to ask. It's about being able to sift through all the noise
Oh, yeah.
and figure out what's true, what's important, and what's just distraction.
Precisely. We're all becoming digital detectives in a way. We have to develop a healthy sense of skepticism, learn to be discerning consumers of information, and always be willing to challenge our own assumptions.
So there's definitely a sense of urgency here. But it's not all doom and gloom, is it? I mean, this technological revolution, it isn't just about challenges. It's also about incredible opportunities.
Of course. We have the potential to leverage these technologies to address some of humanity's biggest challenges, things like climate change, poverty, disease. Technology can empower us to connect with each other in new ways, to learn and grow, and to create a more just and sustainable world.
It's like we're standing at this crossroads, and the path we choose will determine what kind of future we create. We can either let technology control us, or we can use it to build a better world for ourselves and for generations to come.
That's a powerful way to put it, and the choice really is ours.
So if there was one key takeaway you'd want our listeners to walk away with from this deep dive, what would it be?
Stay curious, stay engaged, and stay hopeful. The future is not preordained. It's something we actively create together.
I love that. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. It's been an incredible journey, exploring the complexities of China's tech ambitions and what they mean for the world.
It's been a pleasure diving deep with you all.
And a huge thank you to our listeners for joining us. We hope you've learned something new, had your assumptions challenged, and maybe even felt a little inspired to think about the role you want to play in shaping the future. The world is changing faster than ever before, but with the right mindset, a willingness to embrace the unknown, and a commitment to using technology for good, we can navigate these changes and create a future that is both exciting and meaningful. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.